Every day, you would be out of your mind.
In South Florida tonight, preparations are underway for the onslaught of Hurricane George. Florida's governor has declared a state of emergency in the central and southern part of the state. Good evening and thanks for joining us for Weather Center. I'm Terry Smith.
And I'm Mike Motley. Hurricane George is presently over the eastern coast of Cuba. It is a Category 1 hurricane, but it is expected to strengthen if and when it moves over open water.
Dave Schwartz is monitoring the situation from our forecast center. Let's turn to him now for the latest.
Thank you, Terry and Mike. Well, as you said correctly, central and southern Florida have been declared under a state of emergency by the governor of Florida, not because of what has happened. Nothing's happened. It was a beautiful day today in Florida, but because of what may yet happen tomorrow night into Friday, possibly Saturday. We're keeping a close watch on Hurricane George, and as you know, here it is in our satellite movie, continuing to move just a little north of due west. Across the northeast Caribbean. It has reached now into parts of Cuba. They're taking quite a lashing at the present time from 75-mile-per-hour winds, heavy rain, and some flooding on the north coast as the winds come in from the north out ahead of the center of the circulation. That movement west-northwest at 14 miles an hour, that's been consistent for a week. Now, if that were to continue, it would just move right over Cuba and into the central Gulf of Mexico. But there is some reason to believe that the hurricane might make a right turn here. Where it does make the right turn is critical in determining who feels the wrath of Hurricane George. And for some expert advice as to what we should do and what we're in for, here is John Hope, our hurricane expert. John, you've seen many of these. This is certainly no Hurricane Andrew, but it could pose some problems.
No, we want people in South Florida to realize that. It's far from an Andrew right now. We don't think it'll ever get as strong as Andrew was, but it could pick up some strength.
So it could be up to maybe 100 miles an hour, maybe even stronger than that.
Yeah, something of that order. That's the way it looks now. And even that strengthening is not going to begin until we get the center over the water. And we don't think that will be before tomorrow.
I've got a close-up satellite picture, John, and perhaps you can show us where the center of the circulation is.
The center of the circulation is right here on the eastern part of Cuba, not very far from the north coast. We know it's north of Guantanamo because the wind now at the Guantanamo base is straight from the west, so we know it's north of there. And it's closer to the north coast than the south.
So we've got north winds, those battering waves here, and then the west winds at Guantanamo right around the circulation.
Exactly, and these north winds that you pointed out here coming down like so are causing some tidal flooding. We have reports from Cuba on that already.
Now, what happens if the center reemerges out over water? What are we in for?
It's going to begin to strengthen then, and the reason we believe that, we think all the dynamics are still in place. When we look at this overall picture here, it has good outflow, all quadrants, that of course coming in a clockwise fashion at high elevation. So it has everything except the center is not over water. The center of a tropical system has to be over water for it to develop.
So what you're saying is if the center were not over land, this could very well be another Hurricane Andrew.
Well, it could be much, much stronger than what it is. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Hurricane watches are in effect. Of course, the warnings are here too. Hurricane warnings in effect in the vicinity of the hurricane. As you can see, there's our hurricane for parts of the southern Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, Santo Domingo. These will probably be lifted perhaps later on tonight or tomorrow. But with the hurricane projected path toward the northwest, hurricane watches could be advanced to hurricane warnings, and of course part of that includes the state of Florida. Hurricane George's projected path takes it toward Florida or perhaps into the Gulf of Mexico, or maybe both. To keep you one step ahead of the storm, we've got Jim Cantore standing by live in the Miami metropolitan area, just south of town in Key Biscayne, where it's been a beautiful day so far, but that could change by tomorrow night. Jim?
Dave, as you mentioned, again, a beautiful day, but I hear you with John talking about Andrew, and this is no Andrew, but I got to tell you, the folks are taking it like it is. I mean, they've definitely prepared that way, and it's just amazing how the whole system is work here for preparedness in the taping up of the windows, in the boarding up of the windows as well, and also a very wise move on the hardware store owners as well as the supermarkets to realize, hey, we are going to have a phenomenal rush on this stuff, so we need to ship more of it in. So that's exactly what they did, and no one has been turned away without getting what they want from these areas. Well, let's get an idea from a different perspective. I mean, there's all sorts of people that have to be implemented and whatnot when emergency management goes underway. But with the U.S. Coast Guard, we've got Jeff Hall with us tonight. And Jeff, give us an idea of what the Coast Guard's role is with the hurricane preparedness.
Well, right now, obviously all our ships have left port. They've gone south down by Cuba to wait out the storm, and as that storm moves through the area, they will circle in behind and come in and provide communications for any kind of search and rescue or distress calls that we're going to be receiving after the storm.
And you're doing some of that in Puerto Rico right now, is that correct?
Correct. We have ships coming in there. They're working since our base in San Juan was hit a little heavily. They're providing communications to work search and rescue cases, and Coast Guard assets are also flying teams into the Caribbean islands to estimate the damage.
And give us the estimated time of the lockdown on the bridges.
Right now, with strong winds scheduled to reach Miami by mid-afternoon tomorrow, they're looking at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning that all bridges on the Intercoastal and on the Miami River are going to be locked down.
Which means if you have a sailboat, you need to get it in.
People need to be making arrangements right now to get their boats to safety. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff, again for that report. That's the Coast Guard's role in all of this, and of course there are many roles, but the good news, Dave, is that all those roles are being fulfilled this evening, and that is not a surprise, especially given the memories of Andrew. Back to you.
Useful information, and yes, it's not a Hurricane Andrew, but it sure is a hurricane. Thanks so much, Jim Cantore, standing by live in Key Biscayne, and he'll be there tomorrow as the weather conditions worsen. Once again, a hurricane watch is in effect for South Florida, and once again, John, that means what?
That means that it'll be possible to have hurricane conditions within 36 hours. That doesn't say they're imminent, and whenever conditions are imminent or deemed to be so, then some of those watches will be changed to warnings.
Hurricane watches tonight, maybe hurricane warnings tomorrow.
Very likely will some hurricane warnings be put up in the northern Bahamas and parts of mainland U.S. tomorrow.
Thanks so much for your expertise. Stay with us here at the Weather Channel. We are not taking our eyes off the eye of Hurricane George, and it may be a lot more discernible on satellite tomorrow if it moves out over the water and strengthens as it heads toward Florida. For more information, if you're away from your set, check us out at weather.com. Well, speaking of weather, there's more weather here over the mainland U.S., and a lot of it has to do with a touch of fall. Here's Terry with that story.
All right, Dave. We do have actually some very quiet and pleasant weather across much of the country, but a little bit of shower activity ahead of this front anywhere from Florida up through Texas, and then our next frontal boundary also touching off some rain. And between the two fronts, fall-like temperatures. Show you the latest radar here in central Florida. You can see the rain across much of Tampa, particularly off toward the east, Orlando and around the Cape Canaveral region.